Hey everybody, how's it going? Noba here. My life's purpose is to guide people towards choosing freedom. And so today we're demoing one of my services that I provide. This is one on one guidance coaching. The goal of a guidance session is to inspire you to maximize your potential through a thought provoking process. I offer both private and public sessions. And today we're having a public session with one of my longtime viewers, Tijn. If you enjoy this video and would like to see more content like this from me, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. And I am so incredibly grateful for all of the continued support that I've been receiving. Seriously, thank you. Well, let's get this thing rolling. So, what would you like to work on today?
I mean, I guess it's still just more of the same, like just being getting to be able to just do stuff instead of continuously forgetting them or not being able to do them because of time limitations, because I forgot them earlier and all that.
Okay. So, just to make sure that we're on the same page, what I'm hearing is that because of the time limitation, there's a forgetfulness factor that happens with those two things.
Well, mm, because there's a time limitation, if I only remember it too late, then there's not it creates a situation where there isn't really a point to get started anymore.
Got it. So it's a remembrance thing. You're finding that by the time it's remembered in your head, like you're like, okay, it's just too late already. Is that? Do I got it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious and we talked about this a little bit, but to frame it for this session, what's the value behind getting this straightened out?
Being able to just get stuff done properly again. Like, I don't, like, yeah, making sure I don't, I don't know, just making sure I don't forget stuff like just cleaning around the house, getting actually making sure everything's properly in stock. Uh, yeah,
Okay.
making sure my place remains properly livable.
Yeah. And what would it like what would happen if it wasn't livable?
I would just, it would just keep adding to the pile of reasons why I suck at everything and shouldn't be doing anything at all ever because I'd suck at it.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of things getting in your way, and this one in particular is what you want to tackle today. And it's valuable because you said it was a pile of things, and you want to see that pile shrink. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah,
Well, let's say that that pile was completely gone. No more things that were making you feel like, you know, that you suck. What would that mean if all that disappeared?
I I don't know.
Well, and I just want to say that it's normal to not know. I think anybody in your shoes, when you're looking at this thing, you're like, yeah, if it was gone, I don't know. That's surprising. What I'm hearing is it's sort of a place you would like to be, right? So what I'm curious is like, well, what makes you want to be there, right?
Like, I guess I hope to feel less bad about stuff, but
Right, and
I
that
don't know
makes
how it
sense.
would look in general.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. So you want to feel less bad about stuff. And if you felt less bad about stuff, then what would replace those feelings?
Uh, I mean, I guess I'd be happier, but that feels just overly generic as an answer.
I hear you. I mean, we often say something like, "Yeah, I would be happier," and you're like, "Ah, that just sounds like cheesy or generic." Though, I mean, it's what if it's true? Would you want to be happier?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it might be generic. However, it's generic for a reason, right? Um, so let's say that that pile of things were gone, you would be happier. So life would look a little bit happier, yeah? Are we on the same page with that?
huh?
Awesome. So over this last week, you've tackled one of those little things. That the pile of suck is what you called it, right? That pile of suck, you're like, there's this one thing we're gonna tackle. And so I'm curious, have you found any happiness through that this past week?
I mean, it's mostly feeling like, yay, you're doing one part of the bare minimum.
So then would you just say that was there a happiness increase through working on the pile of suck, even if it was one little thing?
I guess, sort of. Yeah.
Okay, I hear some hesitancy in there. Where's that coming from?
Because whilst do it doing it isn't all that fun, I think there probably was some at least a decrease in unhappiness at no longer seeing the pile of dishes.
Okay. Would you be open to an observation, something I've noticed in our sessions?
Sure.
One interesting thing that I've noticed is that when we talk about things like happiness, what I've heard from you is that it's a lot of there's less unhappiness or there's less bad things. I'm curious about a reframe maybe. What would it be like if rather than there's less bad things, what if there were more good things?
Mhm. I mean, that probably helped, but most of that, at least for me, feels the way I think about things feels more like instinctive or something like that.
Okay, okay.
So it feels like it at least feels like reshaping the way I think about things isn't it's not a thing I can just do.
Right. Yeah. Well, and again, that makes sense. I think that if that was something we could just do, if anybody could just reshape the way they think about things, it would change everything, right? Because we know that, right, thoughts lead to emotions and emotions lead to actions, right? Um, so what I'm curious, have you found any success anywhere in life, or I guess where in life have you found success reshaping maybe your actions or your thoughts?
I don't really know. I think this has just been my general way of looking at things for quite some time now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it'd never be easy to break something that if it's been this way for quite some time, doing it different. And you said, you're like, that might help me. I just, it's been this way for quite some time. I just don't see how that'd be possible, right? Um, that's super reasonable. And what I'm hearing in those words, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is the word that's coming to me is the word stuck. That sounds like stuck to me. How's that resonating with you?
Sure. I'm not fully sure how it feels for me, but that at least feels similar.
You think stuck's that's the word?
I'm not sure if I have a word for it, but I guess stuck could come pretty close. Yeah,
Stuck would come pretty close.
could come
Okay.
one of the closest.
Well, let's run with it for now, and if something hits you,
Yeah.
So here's what I'm curious about. And again, my goal for being here, right, would be to help you get unstuck. Even if it's a teensy little bit. Imagine like would it be okay if I threw out a hypothetical for you? Maybe just like a situation to think on.
Sure.
Awesome. So imagine someone is in like quicksand or like mud or something and they're sinking, right? And they are like, okay, I'm neck deep and my whole body's underneath this mud, right? Let's say one person's like, okay, I'm completely stuck here. Um and that's sort of where they stay. And let's say the other person, they have to fight tooth and nail to get their arm out. And they get their like left arm unstuck and it's on the mud, it's just laying there. And they're like, "Okay, my arm's unstuck, but my entire body's still stuck," right? How much better is this person's chances of getting unstuck if just their arm is out versus if the other person's arm is still stuck?
I mean that I I guess the person whose arm is unstuck, but also just general idea behind quicksand is also that you tend to sink deeper the more you move. So I don't know how his trying to get unstuck might have changed the situation.
Yeah, that's fair, and that may be true. Yeah, I'm not a quicksand expert. Um, so what does that analogy mean to you then?
Like, yeah, I can see the idea behind the analogy, but also it just feels like the same thing I've been hearing for a very long time that still every time makes it feel like mm, me being unable to get my arm out of the mud. It could be equivalent to me not trying to get my arm out of the mud.
Mm, I hear you. I hear you. So what I'm hearing is your efforts have seemed futile, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's like I hear where you're coming from because it's like if that's your experience of things, it's like why am I even trying, right? I get it.
No,
I
more like if mm, everyone keeps saying you should get your arm out of the mud, and I don't feel like I can after at least thinking to have tried, then surely if they all think it's so simple, then I must just be a failure, right?
I see. So what I'm hearing there is they've put expectation on you and you're feeling it's like I can't do that. And then because of that expectation, you feel like a failure. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that's tough, right? Because when somebody expects something of us and we fail to do that, it is normal human tendency that we're like, okay, I failed, I'm a failure, right? Um, what what I saw, and this is really interesting, when we first started chatting today, one of the first things we talked about was the work you did over this past week, and the first thing you said to me was, the day that our session ended last week, yeah, I got the dishes done, you know, and in my head immediately I'm like, Tyne just got his arm unstuck, right? Like I see that as a big win. And what I heard was also that you said that it kind of was feeling like it's just not working because of other people's expectation, right? So I'm really curious what's coming up for you when I say that.
First thought in my head was like, it's not like I haven't done the dishes before, and this time it was fully fresh on my mind to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I guess that's immediately just me trying to excuse how I did do it this time when, and how that might not have been getting my arm unstuck.
Is that, or I guess, how often do you see
But
that
I guess
pattern?
now that I'm addressing the fact that my first thought was going to me trying to get myself down to you didn't do anything, you just did it, you didn't accomplish anything, you just did it because we just talked about it.
Yeah. So
Yes, that's,
what's like the pattern there?
I guess now I thinking about why I'm thinking things is weird and ah,
What are you learning though?
I guess that a lot of the times my first reaction to praise is how do I explain that I didn't do something all that great to mitigate future expectations?
Oh wow. So what I heard you say was that to mitigate future expectations, your successes, you're like it wasn't really a big deal. That's
Yeah.
okay. So
Hmm.
what if those little successes were like, woo, that's a you did the dishes, right? Like we went from like it's real struggle to you're like, yep, first day, I got it done. Yes, right? Like what would that be like?
Yeah. I mean, that would be nice.
So what I'm hearing
Yeah.
is to me, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing is it sounds almost like a celebration of success thing. Because again, my experience of you, and since we've been working together, is that you have been much more successful in what you set out to do than unsuccessful. However, when we talked, you were like, "Yeah, it's I've kind of failed at these things," and but again, just based off the evidence and the results of what you brought me, I'm like, I'm hearing success, 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 and so I'm like over here celebrating, right? So I'm curious, what challenges would happen? Maybe what would come up for you if you started celebrating those successes?
I mean, I don't know. I guess, I mean, I'd be happier, but also whenever I would fail, it hit extra hard.
Hmm. How true is that?
No clue because I don't really know how
Would you be okay if
any
maybe with a
of
hypothetical
them work.
we what if we tested that out? What if we tested that out? Because I wouldn't want there to be life work that you would do and you'd be like, yeah, my failures are hitting me hard. Would it be all right if we took that for a test drive?
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, so let's come up with like a hypothetical situation where where you let's say you haven't celebrated success, but you could, and then let's look at the failure aspect of it, and let's see if it is amplified. Okay. So what's a situation where you now that you're sort of you're like, okay, yeah, I'm realizing these things. What's maybe a situation where you're like, okay, I could probably have celebrated a little bit more of my success in this area.
Aside from just the past week doing the dishes, there doesn't really feel any. It doesn't really. I found it's hard to remember anything that I did particularly right.
Would you like a maybe a bit of a nudge, something that I saw?
Sure.
Awesome. Um, one thing that you said, which really had an impact on me, you said, our session, after our session, I remembered. It was fresh and I remembered, right? Um, Noba's perspective, my perspective, right? I'm like, that's a win. Immediately, I'm going to celebration. And then I heard you you were kind of like, yeah, it, it was more of like because it was fresh, we had a win. Whereas I was kind of like, that's awesome. It was fresh and we had a win. So, I'm curious if we took that hypothetical sort of, and we were like, let's say, Tine, you celebrated that. In that moment, you celebrated, right? You were like, maybe when you hopped into the session today, you were like, hey, day one, I nailed it, right? What would that feel like?
Did it feel like I was acting out a character?
Yeah, and I get it, right? Because I hear you, because you're like, that's not me. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's challenging. So then what would need to happen for you to get there? To where that is you?
That's the exact thing I've been running into this whole time. I don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so what I'm hearing is it sounds like that would be where that's where like our work where we could really explore then, right? It sounds like what I'm hearing is that to see some serious results through guidance coaching, it would be less like, okay, I'm doing the dishes, and it would be more like, who am I, right? Like, is it truly me, this person who's like, I don't do these things? Like, that's what I'm curious about, right? Like, who are you, right? Like is Tyne someone, and answer this honestly, because I really don't know. In your heart, do you think that the core of who you are is somebody who doesn't celebrate the successes?
Right now, yeah, that's probably who I am. I don't know how that might or might not change because, like, getting weirdly philosophical, but like, show me a permanent state of the self.
Yeah.
I, yeah, I have no clue. I have, I don't know what if how I am in what like. Hmm. Like right now, I definitely am someone who doesn't tend to celebrate it, things that might be seen as successful.
Would you be open to, and again, this is just you can totally be honest, would you be open to maybe a bit, it's a little bit of an exercise that I've done with some clients in the past that sort of opened them up to who they are?
Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Love it. So one way that I've myself, this worked for me and other people, they found success in finding who they are, is to look back at their inner child, okay? Like their childhood. Um, and what comes up for a lot of people is, well, when I was a child, I was like this and I was like that, because of this and that, right? So like, and I'll just share with you my example. My example is that like, I was very explorative, right? I was like an explorer. I love to explore. However, I got in trouble one day because my dad was looking for me, and I wasn't where he expected me to be. And so he like spanked me and like yelled at me and he was so mad. But I was just exploring, right? And so as an adult, I was too scared to like explore. Because that was like my trauma. But the key is, and the point of inner child work is like my heart, like the person who I am, I'm the guy who loves to explore. I love exploring. Like even if you look at what I'm doing right now, I'm on Street View exploring, right? Like as an adult, I still love it. However, I'd lost that for so many years just because it was in the back of my head. Because I was always like pointing to that thing, right? So what we're looking at, the purpose of this exercise, and this could even be work over the next week, what we look at is how would Tine as a child react to this? Or what would that pure child, the unadulterated, right, the untraumatized child, what would that Tine, how would that Tine feel about it, right? So let's just take success then, right? Let's say young Tine has a big, like even a small success. What would like maybe 2-year-old, 3-year-old Tine do? Maybe 4-year-old.
I have like zero memory from that.
Yeah, yeah. What do you
Like
think?
nothing to pull from.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think it'd be like? Do you have any inclination, maybe? Do you know any young children? That can sometimes also be helpful. Like, do you maybe like a niece or a nephew or something?
I mean, yeah,
How do you think they would react if they had like a big success? Maybe like they jumped off of like something, like they jumped off a step, and they're like, "Whoa!" What do you think they would do?
jump some more, I guess.
Jump some more. I love that answer. That's amazing. They jump off a step. They're like, "I'm gonna jump some more." What I'm so fascinated by is they jump off the step and it's a success. You're like, well, they'll jump some more. So what I'm hearing, what you kind of pointed out there is like, oftentimes a child's nature is like, they experience success, they do it again. So how could that maybe be applicable in the situation today?
So this is
Yeah, that's okay. Tell me what you're thinking right now. I'm curious. I can hear you. The cogs turning.
that I basically cannot break free from a mindset of every question must have a right answer.
Ah, I hear you. Yeah, that is so tough. I my heart reaches out to you on that one in particular because I studied math at one point in my life and I was like a slave to that concept that I felt like these if the answers don't have a they if this needs a right answer, right? Um so I hear you. I get it. That is a tough spot to be. Because it's like you feel like if it's not going to be right, then maybe I shouldn't even say it. Is that at least that's how I felt. Um, I want you to know this is a space where it's okay to be wrong, you know, and it's okay for something to not work, right? Like today has been a great example of like we've gone some places and you're like, yeah, that's not working for me, right? And it's not about because when it's right and wrong, right, that we oftentimes will kind of stop there. But when it works versus doesn't work, we keep going, you know. So I mean, what you said really just hit me hard because I feel you on that. I've had to reframe that in my life, and it's been a journey. Um, so with that in mind, what's worked so far this session for you the most? What would you say?
I mean, I guess the bit where I was thinking about my initial response to why something might not be nearly as much of a success as you were claiming it to be.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And then that led us sort of to the inner child stuff. Um, um, what we do here, and what's so special about this, right, is we can look at some of the ways to be conscious of it. And what I heard you tap into is like, you're like, yeah, it worked really well for me when I was like, yeah, I guess I don't know why I didn't frame that as success. So then what if for this next week, if we created work for you around that concept, how could you maybe explore this in yourself? Explore that concept of, hmm, what is happening when I don't create success? What could that maybe look like for you?
Just trying to catch the like the first thought to whenever someone is like, yeah, this could this, you yeah, that's good. Just the first thought of why that wouldn't be good, try and catch that and why.
Ooh, okay, I love that. And then maybe like write it down. Is it maybe something like that? Would that also work for you?
I mean, writing down is often situationally limited, but I'll try.
Okay, yeah, and that's reasonable. So then maybe just remember like the situation and then the thought that followed.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, love it. Yeah, that's spectacular work. I think that's really great. So what I hear you're going to do over the next week then is you're going to sort of catch the thought. My word, this is my words, not yours, but I call those minimalizing thoughts. You're going to catch the minimalizing thought that sort of minimalizes the success. And then you're going to remember that, and then that'll be something that you can work on going forward. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Spectacular. What do you think that would do for you if you really got that straightened out?
Getting more aware of what's going on in just my like most immediate like instinctive response to things.
Yeah, yeah. What better way to learn about ourselves than our instinctual response to stimuli? That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's a spectacular takeaway. That's great. So yeah, really awesome job. Is there anything else you'd like to say, like in closing, to feel complete with this session?
Well, I think I got it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll see you next week.